any second. All right, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen. So can you please confirm if you are able to see the screen?
Sure. I can see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Hello all. A very good morning or afternoon or evening. Thank you for taking your time and joining this session. And and I would like to thank our organizers as well, Raj, Ash, and other guys. For organizing this. And hope you all are having a great day. And yeah, so now today I'm going to speak about a custom API. And we will see we will go in depth on custom API and all. And before we go into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Nagaraja Emmadsetti. You can call me Raja. I'm working as a senior developer at Vattenfall. Vattenfall is a utility company in Amsterdam. I live in Amsterdam, and you can contact me on LinkedIn. So after this session, I'll post my contact details to you can contact me for if you have any questions or knowledge sharing. And I have a blog. Blog name is poweruppowerplatform.com. So I write some blogs about the technology and the new features, and you can contact me on Gmail as well. So let's see what is our agenda. So first we will see about what is custom API and why Microsoft introduced that feature and what are the different types of custom APIs, and the components associated with custom API, and how we create what are the multiple methods of creating the custom API in Dataverse. And we will see a demo of creating the custom API in Dynamic 365, and after that we will see how we can invoke the custom API and the multiple methods and live demo of it. And then we will see what is the difference between custom actions, which we already have in Dynamic 365 for many years, and the new version of that custom API. And then next we will see about we have a tool, community tools to convert the existing custom actions to custom API, and the new known issues and the resources. We will see about that. So let's talk about what is custom API. Before we go into custom API, so let's talk about what is a message. So we already have out-of-the-box messages in Dataverse, and Dataverse exposes the APIs using messages. Like, for example, the out-of-the-box messages we all know is create, update, delete, and assign. All those are messages. Dataverse exposes that APIs using this message, so that internally and externally we can consume these messages to update the data or get the data from the Dataverse. And how it is related to custom API. So custom API is nothing but creating your own message, like create, like update, like delete, and like out of the box messages. So you will create your own message based on your needs. We may have some specific functionality to, for example, combine multiple methods into one message. Like, for example, a very good example mentioned the Microsoft Talks, which is very simple to understand. Is in any call center, any customer service team, you may need to create a case and update a case, and assign it to case to a customer service representative. So you can combine all these messages, and you can call escalate, and you can define that message in terms of custom API. So that is the basic idea of custom API. And let's see some more points about custom API. So it's not something new. Of course, Microsoft recently introduced this feature, custom API, for us, for the audience. But this is not something new. It's an advanced version of custom action, and the custom API is also used by Microsoft internally before they release it to the general availability or public preview. So they use it internally, to restrict the functions or actions so that other people don't utilize those actions. So they use this concept already, and they released it to public, so that we can make use of this custom API. So as I said, like it's an advanced version of custom action, so which we already have from many years. And so as I said, like it's a way of creating our own message, our own operation, and way of combining multiple operations or multiple messages into an API so that we can consume that internally and externally. And one of the main point is this is not for low code developers or citizen developers. This is mainly for for developers. It's a code first way to define messages. So there is no way there is nothing like configuration or drag and drop kind of things in this. So it's nothing but like a plugin code, a C# code which is defined, and you can utilize this. You can call this plugin code a piece of code by calling an action or custom API. So as I said, like it can be consumed internally and externally. Internally, I mean inside Dataverse, while we're writing plugins, or while we're writing JavaScript, or while we're writing, creating a flow or like that, or externally, to integrate between multiple applications. So this is kind of component which can be used to integrate between multiple applications by calling this custom API from externally using Web API. So what it does is, like when you create a custom API, where either it will create a Web API function or Web API action. I mean, in other terms, it creates OData function or OData action. So and we can see what is the difference between those two, action and function. The main difference is like action changes data to the system, and it is invoked by post method, HTTP post method, and the parameters are passed in the body of the request. And function is like it doesn't change any data in the system, but it simply retrieves the data, and it kind of invoke using the get method. And if you want to retrieve like specific fields, like you can mention in the query parameters in the select column to get required columns, all those things. And one important note we need to understand here is like so custom process actions or custom actions, which we already we have been using it from many years. They're always actions. They're always post methods. They're not. You can't define any custom process action as a function. So in the name itself, it suggests it's an action. And with the custom API, so you can define all of your operations, as I said, like you can define either as a function or action, but every scenario you can define it as action. There might be some reasons for that. One of the reasons might be you can't call any Web API function in Power Automate. So if you want to use the action, the custom API that you create to be used by any Power Automate, so then you need to define it as an action rather than a function. And but for some scenarios, definitely some operations like retrieving the data, you can better express it as a GET request, so that it can be called from other external application and stuff, passing any instead of using the post method. So, and let's see, like what are the components when you create a custom API. So what are the components that are associated with it? When you create the custom API, it's nothing but you are creating a record in a table, Microsoft Dataverse table. That table is nothing but name is custom API. And you associate, for every function or for every action, there might be request parameters and response parameters. So for each and every request parameters and response parameters, you create different records in another table in the respective tables, and there is already out of the box association between these tables. Like one custom API can contain multiple request parameters or multiple response parameters. So that's how you create the custom API. The way of creating action is completely different from creating custom API. So because when you create an action, so you go to process in the dataverse, like you create an action, and that's nothing but a workflow engine or workflow designer that you do. But here excuse me, like when you create custom APIs, these are nothing but simple records in a table, like you create records in account, a contact, or opportunity table. These are also a record, simple records. And there are so much advantages of having this kind of model of creating custom API as records that we will see later. So how to create custom API in DataWorks? Like there are multiple methods. The main method that we see demo today is using the maker portal, which is easier. And there are other methods as well, like you can create custom API using code and using solution files, yeah, these are the three methods that you can create custom API. But we will see only about creating how to create custom action from the maker portal. Other ways we don't see today, but it's easy to understand as these are records in a table. So you can create from code, like you can use organization surveys to create records, which is nothing but creating custom APIs. And these are nothing but XML files that you can export the solution, and you can edit the solution in the files. Like all custom APIs are stored in a folder called custom APIs. So when you create a solution with that custom APIs, like when you export it, you will see that folder when you extract that solution. So that gives us the opportunity to create custom API, define custom APIs in solution files itself. So that's a great feature for to follow the best practices in ALM methods. So you can create you can make it part of ALM, and you can create dynamically using ALM methods. So let's see demo of like how you create a custom API in Dataverse. So this is make a portal, make.powerapps.com. So I created a solution called a custom API. So it is always recommended to create a separate solution for custom APIs, so that so it would be easier for ALM or for any reference purposes. And when you open this, so this is already I have created one custom API, but we will create new one. So you can see a custom API as a component in the solution. So when you click on this, so it will open the old designer like a record. So let's see, we will create one. So the scenario here, what I'm going to do is like, so I want to create a custom API to retrieve, SharePoint document location for a record. When you integrate SharePoint with Dynamics 365, so for every record, it creates a location in the SharePoint, so that you can, it is integrated with Dynamics 365, and when you upload files in Dynamics 365, you can manage those files in SharePoint as well. So we have SharePoint integration with Dynamics 365, and and we have a scenario. We have an external application, web application, so where we want to upload files related to an opportunity. So when we can create opportunity from a web application, and it is integrated with Dynamics 365. And as part of creating that opportunity, so we have options to upload files. And we want to directly upload those files into SharePoint to to do that, so we need that unique location for that record after creating that record. So we want that unique location of SharePoint document location, so that we can use that URL to to upload files into SharePoint using either OAuth 2 authentication and all those things. So let's see like what I need to create for that. So these are pretty much basic fields: name, display name, and the unique name. And you can description is to retrieve point doc location, and you can binding type. It says like whether you can whether you want to bind this custom API to global to any table or entity collection. That means like a collection of records in a table, like for example, multiple opportunities. So this is the one of the advantage of the custom APIs over custom actions. Of course, we will see the clear difference between custom action and custom API. But as you see here, this is one of the major advantage of creating custom API. So you can bind it to your entity collection, so that you can call this method for multiple records. So that and by doing that, you can reduce the number of API calls as well. So in this case, like let me create a global action, and as I'm creating a global action, I'm not binding it to any table. So if you are binding it to any table like entity, so you need to give the name. And even if you binding it to entity collection, you need to give a name of that table. So as I'm creating global action, I don't need to give it to give any name. And is function. So this field represents, so as I said earlier, like when you create a custom API, you can either create it as a function or action. So in this case, and as I said, like you can configure anything as an action. So so the reason why I'm going to create it as an action, the reason why is I'll show you later, because one of the scenario can be called from Power Automate. So only actions can be called from Power Automate. So that's why I want to create it as an action, so that I can demo that. And is private. So whether you want, whether the developer wants this custom API as private or public. Like when you define it as private, so you are restricting the access of this custom API to yourself, and you can share it to others, so that the access is restricted to only these people. This might be an advantage for ISV publishers, so that the other publishers don't use this custom API or don't call this or don't register any code on this custom API, so that it is restricted to only to them. So that's a kind of scenario where it can be used. But I'm creating now as public, and this is a new field that I see now. So earlier it's not there. So earlier it's the custom API you can call from workflow, but now it seems that you can call this custom API from a workflow. So in my case, like I'm just making it as yes. And this one is interesting. So for every before we discuss about it, let's understand one scenario. Like every developer might have done this using custom actions. Like we create a custom action, and on that message we register a plugin code. So that when you call that custom action, that code will be triggered, and you do some operations in that code. So custom API is nothing but the same pattern, just that Microsoft made it available as a first party capability. So the idea behind custom API is same. Like you create a custom action, plus on that you trigger the plugin code. So it is similar to that. And what it does is like allowed custom processing step type. What it does is like after you create a custom action, so you can restrict that no other custom code can be associated with this custom code. No other plugins can be registered on this custom API or custom message. so that it is restricted to only you guys. So it's up to you guys whether you want to extend this functionality to other people so that they can register their code on this custom API or custom message. So in my case, like I'm just putting as both, and there are options. Like if it is none, means like you are not giving that privilege to other people, and async only means like only async plugins can be registered on this custom API message. And when you choose sync and async, you can register both sync plugins and async plugins on this custom API message. And I'm just giving it as sync and async, and execute privilege name. Like you can restrict. So when you create a custom action, so there is no way of restricting it to a specific privilege. So when you're creating custom action, means it's public almost, and so we can't associate any privilege security to the custom action, but custom API. So you can mention one privilege to for example, privilege create account. Like this, you can mention the privilege so that like if the user has this privilege creating a create account, so then he can call this action like that. So in my case, like let's not do that. And this is the major one. What kind of plugin that what is that plugin that you want to associate this custom API. So I have registered multiple plugins in my plugin registration tool. I want to associate that here. So, and there is a prerequisite when you do this. So you need to register this in the main operation. So that's the only way to do it. But we have other ways to do it. But the main way is to register that assembly and register that assembly in a main operation, so that it can be called from from custom API. So that's what the idea behind it is. And let me find the name. I forgot the name. Yeah, so here I have written a plugin so which retrieves the SharePoint location of an opportunity record. So let's see that that code, like how it looks like. So here it is. It's very basic plugin. So I'm taking opportunity ID as input parameters, and I'm calling there is a request, there is class which does help us to get the SharePoint absolute location. So you can call this and you can get that SharePoint URL. So this is a pretty basic method, basic plugin to retrieve the SharePoint URL. But of course, you can extend it to however you want. So and for this demo, so I just used this scenario. It takes opportunity ID as input parameter, and it gives SharePoint URL, document location URL related to that opportunity ID, so that it can be used to upload files. And that's what it is. And I registered this just an assembly. You don't need to register any step for that because so as I said, like it does need to be registered only on main operation. It doesn't need to be. There is no need of registering a step for that. But in custom action case, like you need to create a step on that custom action message, so that will be triggered when you call that action. But here you don't need to create a step. So that's kind of, I see that as disadvantage in some scenario, because you can't debug a plugin so until unless you create a step, because you can only debug a step, not the direct assembly. So you can only so you can't debug if you kind of do this. But there is other way to debug, but we will get back to you that later. So this is what my custom API looks like. So it's pretty simple. I just need to pass input parameter and get that SharePoint location. And so this is just to create a custom API, but I will create request parameter and response parameter later after this and associate with the custom API. Let me save this. And save and close. And if you see here, so the custom API that I created, you don't see it here. So it's a bug, I think. And so after creating that custom API, you again need to go to existing components and open the custom API. So it gives that the custom APIs here. This is the one that I have created. It's a bug, but hopefully it will be resolved, I mean, soon. So this is recently released, so it will be fixed later, I believe. And I have created this custom API. So now the next step is to create request parameter. Sorry, let me create new one. So the same way, like when you create custom API, it even for request parameters and response parameters, also it creates another record. So here you need to give that so the custom API, and you can define the message, the input parameters, and so let's just give. And the types. So you see there is a rich, rich availability here in terms of parameters. So we have string array and GUID and entity collections, which you don't see in usual custom action. So you can pretty much all type of preliminary and complex types are there, and even entity collection is also there, so that you can pass entity collection as input parameter. And so right now I'm just passing a string, and I'm not binding it to any entity. So you can do it, but I'm not binding it to any entity. So I'm just making it as required. So this is the simple, right? You just need to define the parameters like this, and you can select whatever you want. What is the type of that parameter? So in my case, I'm just passing the GUID as a string. So that's why I created this. And let's save it. And same problem here. So you need to go to again the existing components and associate with this. So, and now let's create response parameter. So here, let's take that action. So you can define the names. And you can see the same type of the parameter types, the response parameter types you can see here. So in my case, like I'm passing that SharePoint URL as a string. So let's create a string, and I'm not binding it to any entity. So you can pretty much create like this. And again, I need to go to and add this. So now I have all my custom API and request parameters and response parameter inside the solution. And as you can see, it's a solution aware components. And so you see how to create custom API and request properties and response properties, right? It's pretty simple. You just need to follow the fields there, and there are very good docs mentioned in the Microsoft docs. Like you can see what is the every property and how to call that, how to define custom action, custom APIs. And let's see what we have. Like so now the next part is how to invoke this custom API. And there are multiple ways to invoke it. Like it depends on our scenario. Like so you can it's nothing new. Like how you invoke the custom action, it's similar to that. Like you just need to use the same methods to call custom APIs. Like in this example, in the top example, like so this is how you invoke the custom API using organization service request, using organization service. So you can using this code, like this code, you can call custom API from any plugin. And another way to do it, like as I said, like using web API. So as I said, like when you create custom API, so it either creates web API function and action, or action, so that it can be consumed from external. So if you see here, this is nothing but using the post method. So it's custom action, custom API, which is part like web API action. And you see here using get. So this is how you call web API function. So, and one more thing that I want to mention is, like, you can call this custom API from Power Automate as well. But the only limitation is, like, you can't call web API functions. You can only call custom API, which are type of actions. So that using, we already have a connector with Microsoft Dataverse, and there is an action called execute bound action or inbound action. Using those actions, like, you can call this custom API. And let's see one by one how to call invoke custom APIs. So I have configured a Postman. I use this tool. Postman tool is used to test the API functionalities. Like, so let me generate first the token so that it won't give any issue. And so yeah, so I'm set. I generated a token, and if you see here, look, I'm calling the action, the custom API that I defined earlier. So not the one that I created now. So you can see this is the custom API name, and the same as what we created now. So I'm passing opportunity ID, the due ID as string. So right now I'm hard coding, but based on your scenario, you can generate it automatically. And I'm sending it as a body, just a parameter, and you can define multiple parameters based on your custom API definition. So let me just call this, let me just pass this opportunity and get the SharePoint URL. So this is the SharePoint URL for that opportunity ID. So using this location URL, I can pretty much upload the files into SharePoint using C# code or any other ways. So as you see here, it's pretty much easy to call the custom API from external systems. So as I'm calling from Postman means, like, you can call from other systems as well. So if you see here, I'm using post because I defined this custom API as an action, not the function. So let me show you that. Here, so I mentioned is function no, because as I said, like, I want to show other demo as well. So that's why I created as an action. So that's why I used post method to call this custom API. And let's see what is the other way, like Power Automate. So, and yeah, I just configured a simple flow. It doesn't look good, excuse me, but just to demo, like, how does it look like. So I'm just calling it as I'm just triggering it manually, and you see this action. So you can So it's part of Dataverse connector, and you see two actions like perform a bound action and unbound action. So unbound action is nothing but if you want to invoke global actions. So unbound means which is not binded to any table or any entity collection. So in my case, like I created this custom API binding type global. So that's why I use this action. And I have used that action, and action name is get SharePoint URL. So if you see here, you will get all type of custom APIs which are of action type and the custom actions as well. So I'm just passing the opportunity ID. As you know, I have defined this parameter with this name for that custom API and passing that, and I'm sharing that. Uh, uh, you know, uh, uh, I'm storing that response. So you see here like the response SharePoint URL. So I'm just storing it here. Let's see how it whether we get the result or not. Yeah, it's taking time. Let me just refresh. So you see here, I got the response in a JSON format, and this is the output response property that I defined, and it's nothing but the SharePoint URL of that thing. So like this, I can call this custom API from Power Automate and Postman as well, and we can see like we can call this custom API using JavaScript as well, like using let me just show you the code. So using xrm.web API online execute, because this is nothing but like we used to do call action. So it's simple. It's same as custom actions, like to call web API function or web API action. So you use this xrm.web API online execute request, and when you call this, and one thing to remember is like maybe if some of you guys have already called custom action, so it's pretty much similar. So you might have already idea, but if someone didn't do it yet, so let's see like what is it about, like what are the things that we define here. So one of the main thing is like you need to define the get metadata function. So here, so you define your input parameters. What are the parameters that you pass? And you can define multiple parameters inside this, because I'm passing only one parameter opportunity ID. So that's why I define only one, but you can define multiple parameter types as input parameter, and you just initialize the request and you call that request. That's it. It's simple. So let's see what are the parameter inside this function. So bound parameter. So let me just open one Microsoft Docs here. So you see here the bound parameter. It's an optional parameter, and if you make it as undefined, that means it's a crude request. And if you specify it as null, so that means like it's not bound to any table. And you can define entity as well, like if you can mention entity if it is bound to a table. And you see here like what are the other parameters, like parameter types. So here this is the name of my request parameter, and what is the type name? Type name is string. So you can define other type names as well, like int, like CRM base entity, entity collection, collection type. So all those type names you can mention here. And this is one important thing to note, structural property, whether it is, primitive type of parameter or whether it is complex like that. Let's see. So here you see here, so 0 means you don't know that, and 1 means primitive type. Primitive type means like the basic parameters like string, integer, boolean, all those things. And the collection type, we have entity type, we have enumeration type. Entity type means like if it is a CRM based entity, the parameter, then you define this as 5. And if it is an entity collection, then you define it as or array string, a string array, then you define it as 4. So in my case, so I'm using 1 because it's a string. It's a primitive type. So that's why I'm using this. I'm mentioning this as 1. And operation type. So this is also very important. So if it is an action, web API action, then you need to mention it as 0. If it is a web API function, if you mention there is function yes, then you need to mention here as 1. So, and this is the custom API name, operation name. So the schema name of that you need to mention here. And I'm just initializing a record and I'm passing record ID. So here I'm getting the I register this event on save and I'm getting the record ID and I'm passing that record ID to this constructor so that it passes that opportunity ID as parameter. And I'm just executing that request and I'm just throwing that in alert. Let's see like how it goes. So this is opportunity that I have created. So I just want to trigger that that code on save. So I've registered that code on save event. Let's see. Yeah, you see, I just put the alert, so you can get the SharePoint URL here. Like this, you can call the custom API from JavaScript and from other external applications and from Power Automate. And as I've shown from the Postman, that means like you can call it from externally as well. So that's how you invoke custom API. And so let's see like what is the main difference between custom actions with custom API. So we have been using custom actions, so why we need to use custom API now? What are the advantages of custom API now? You might have got already some idea while defining the custom API. We have multiple options there. So let's see the summary of the difference between both the custom actions and custom API. There are some similarities, like you can define a global action using custom action and the custom API as well, and you can bind it to an entity in both custom action and custom API as well. So, and define main operation logic with code. So yes, you can define main operation in custom workflow, and sometimes you can use the other pattern of using plugin as well, but here it's strictly plugin type. You can only register this custom API, like you can only define the logic in plugins, and you can pass input and output parameters. And the main difference is, I'm sorry, I just put the rich set of parameters here, but it should be here. With the custom API, we have multiple parameters comparatively to action. Action, we have only a limited set of parameters, but in custom API, as you see, as we have seen, like we have multiple parameters, like entity collection is the main one. You can pass it as input, and with the custom action, the code is mandatory. That means like, with the custom API, the code is mandatory. That means like you need to define the logic in plugin. But in custom action, you don't need to define the code. Like you can just define the logic in workflow designer, like using the existing actions inside existing steps inside that custom action. So the code is not mandatory. And do we need specific privilege to invoke custom action or custom API. For custom action, we don't have anything like that. But custom API, we have seen option to configure a specific privilege to invoke custom API. So that's how you can utilize custom API in some scenarios. And can you block extension by other plugins? Both, yes, but you need to do some extra tweaking for custom action. So you need to define this parameter: is custom processing step allowed for the other publishers? This is a managed property. You need to, if you define it as no, then other publishers can't use this custom action. Only whoever is the owner of the publisher of this custom action, only those can you utilize this action or invoke the action. But custom API, so you have an option to restrict whether you wanna other publish to register any step on top of custom API or not. Like, we have seen that option while defining the custom API, and you see here there is set of parameters that we have seen for both request parameters and response parameters. You see here there are much more comparatively to custom action. And as we have seen the option to make a custom API as private, so we don't have that option for custom action. So custom action is always public. And one more difference is, like, as I said, like, you can define custom API as an action, as a function, but in the case of custom action, so in the name itself says it's only action types, not function types. And you can bind this custom API to an entity collection, but you can't do that in custom action. So if you have multiple records where you want to trigger custom action for those records, you need to call it multiple times. But in custom API, you can pass it as input parameter. You can bind it to an entity collection. Yeah, so this is interesting. So as I said, like, one of the types of creating custom API is by editing the solution file. We haven't seen that, but in Microsoft Docs, it clearly says how to do it. You just need to export the solution file, and if you need to create the custom API folder. Inside that, you need to define the definition in the XML structure, custom API definition, and the request and response parameter definition. So it's as simple as that. So this might be useful, very useful in ALM scenarios. So the reason why it is possible, if you see technically, the custom action is nothing but, it's an XAML Windows Workflow Foundation document. So it's not a file. So that's why you can't edit that file using solutions. You can only edit manually using Maker Portal or Old Portal. But in custom API, so you can, these are nothing but pretty much text files. You can edit the definition, and you can create new custom APIs using that definition. And the next point is, this is also pretty much important: 2 minutes time limit. For custom API, technically it's nothing but piece of plugin code. So all plugin codes, sandbox plugin codes, are limited to 2 minutes time limit to complete the execution. And custom action, so it's no and yes and no, because if it is just a custom action without any code, then there is no time limit. But if it is if there is any code defined inside that, either workflow or custom workflow activity, then that is part of that comes under 2 minutes time limit. So it's but by the default, custom action is not doesn't have 2 minutes time limit. And yeah, that's what we have seen. Like, we have seen all the difference between custom action and custom API, and so in future, definitely, Microsoft is saying that it's gonna replace the existing custom action. So that's kind of disadvantage for low code developers. But that's what it is. Like, you can custom API is going to replace, and it's an extension version of custom action. But So how do we redefine the logic, whatever we have in custom actions, and convert them to custom APIs? So I think thanks to Mark, so he created a tool. It's a community tool inside XRM Toolbox. So the tool name is like custom action to custom API converter. So you just need to connect to the environment and open a solution, and it will display all the custom actions there. And in the right side, you see the options. So whatever options we have seen in the maker portal, you can see here, and you can edit those options here. And you can and it shows the plugins also if there is any plugin registered on that message, so that it will be connected to that plugin. So that's easy. That's easy, right? Kudos to Mark, and he created this tool, and please support him downloading this tool and use this tool, and provide him the feedback if you see any issues, or operation is also good. And as this is relatively very new feature, there are some known issues, or you can say limitations. So as I said earlier, like we can't debug that if you define just an assembly, right? You need to create a step to debug the code. But one way of debugging the code is like you need to create a step on the post operation of this message, this custom API message, and you can debug that using plugin profiler. And one more thing, I need to edit this because you see that new option inside that while creating the custom API. So enabled for workflow. This is recently new. So I just need to edit this. So you can call it from workflow. I haven't tried it, but as it is mentioned there, so I think it should be available to call the custom API from a workflow. This is relatively new. Very recently, they have added that field. Earlier, it was not there. And as we have seen, like when we create the custom API, so that's not added to the solution. So that's kind of a bug I see that sometimes it irritates. You need to add those custom actions manually every time. So that's kind of a bug, but soon definitely Microsoft will fix that. And one more thing is like private message. If you define the custom API as private message, it cannot be used in plugins by you can't define plugin on that action message. But but this is different from defining a logic in plugin assembly. So by default, when you define the custom API, define the logic, but there is another way to trigger that custom API is to register a step, another plugin, another code, and create a step on this custom message, so that you call this plugin code on top of that when you invoke the custom API. So this can't be done in if it is a private message. Um, so there is a caution here. So you can't. It's in Microsoft Docs. Like you should not use private message unless you created them as custom API. By marking a message as private, the solution publisher, whoever creates that solution, they do not support other apps to use that message. So it can be a case that they may remove, or they may do extensive changes to that. So that's why they don't want they don't want other plugins to run on this message. So that's what it is. And we came to end of the session. So there are pretty much clear documentation there in Microsoft Docs, and other community documents are also there. So you can refer those docs. And yeah, so that's pretty much my session. And so I'm thankful to the organization for giving me this opportunity. And so let's open the session for questions. If you have any questions, you can mention in the chat, or you can message me on LinkedIn or anyways.
Great, Raja. Thank you so much for the session. And I've seen that there's a lot of conversations going on in the chat. I'll just pick up a few questions, and let's see where we go with that. Okay. Okay. So I think this one is important. How do we disable custom API from Dataverse?
Um, Sorry, how do you disable? Yeah,
Disable.
that's yeah. So that's I forgot to mention that that's one of the drawback or limitation we have. Like you can't activate or deactivate custom APIs. There is no way of doing that as of now. But you still see status, reason fields, but there is no way as of now. But sure, definitely Microsoft will introduce that feature to activate or deactivate, and we can do that for custom actions, but here you can't do that for custom API. And one more thing that we need to mention is, like, once you create the custom API, so there are pretty much the many fields are disabled. You can't
Okay.
edit this fields once you create that. So you need to be very careful before you define the custom API. You need to define the logic clearly before you create the custom API. Otherwise, like, you need to delete this and recreate that. So that's kind of one of the disadvantage, but hopefully Microsoft will definitely fix this.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
what would be the minimum permission or like security role that would be required to create a custom API?
So I think you need to have system administrator privileges to
Okay.
do this, and and so this is nothing but a table, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to give this permission to other users, you need to give permissions to that table. So as you know,
Yeah.
the custom action was a type of process. So if you give privileges to processes, then you
Mm-hmm.
can define custom action. But here, this is nothing but a table, right? So you
Yeah.
can define custom APIs as records if you give privilege to the table, but the plugins are not available for normal users, right? So
Yeah.
pretty much it's for, I can say it's for developers or system customizers or system administrators.
Okay. So basically, we can summarize that whatever security roles we assign a user on the data word that carry forwards over here as well on the custom API.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And there's one more. So if we select entity collection, do we have to pass the GUID?
Yes, when you define the entity collection, you need to pass the GUID records of that collection. Otherwise, like, you don't know to which records you want to run this custom API, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you need to pass those GUIDs.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And also, so the custom processing step, I guess there was a step somewhere that allows to register a sync or async plugin when the message
yeah,
is executed. So
yeah.
does that mean that it is possible to trigger a workflow in cloud flows, basically the when an HTTP request is received, like a webhook kind of a configuration when the message is executed?
But that is clearly for plugins, not for Power Automate or anything. That's clearly for plugins.
Okay.
You can only define logic in plugins, and you can that's options gives you register your create a step on that plugin assembly, another plugin assembly on that custom API message.
Okay.
Clearly, plugin, no, not Power Automate or not even not custom workflow.
Okay. So also, can we create a custom connector using the API?
Yes, so it's nothing but web API, right? So you
Uh-huh.
can pretty much define custom connector, and you can define the definitions and input parameters, output parameters. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a web API function or action, so you can pretty much do that.
Okay, because there's another question that says that can we call the web API using Canvas app? So I believe we'll have to create a custom connector for that if we
Yeah,
didn't want to use Flow.
yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Also, there's another question. So do we need required level for request parameters is optional and required for custom API like that? Okay, I'm not sure if I understand the question, but it says that don't we have a required level for request parameters as optional and required for custom API like we have for actions?
Yeah, I think we have, it says when you define the parameters, let's open this. So it says whether it is optional or required. So we have this option to define whether a parameter is optional or required.
Got it. Okay. So
Yeah,
again, there's the good amount of messages in the chat. So and we've hit the time. So if you
yeah,
have some time, please do answer the questions and also leave your contact information on the chat. So if someone wanted to reach out regarding the session, they could.
definitely. Yeah, I'll give my contact details here.